Hey guys, welcome back to Prospects Providence, and today we're going to be doing the same thing we did for the NL side of the MLB mock draft reaction video, but now we're going to be going over to the AL side, and the same rules apply for the last video as it did for this. Obviously, not giving grades, obviously, but just an overall reaction to the strategy and to how these teams completed their draft. And we're going to be starting off with the AL Central, and I think it's only right that we get the Detroit Tigers out of the way first. And with this, and with their draft, obviously I think that they needed to add the most talent possible. Obviously, they need to add a lot of talent and just build up the pitching depth in this organization that has been demolished by injuries. So they start off this draft taking Jackson Jobe 3 overall. It's a pick that I'm conflicted. Like, I like the pick, but Marcelo Mayer is right there for you. Like, I had Jobe as a top 5 talent in this draft. But I also had Marcelo Mayer, after reevaluating my draft, my scouting, as the number 1 player on the board. And they passed up for that to get Jackson Jobe. I'm not really sure how I feel about that, honestly. Obviously, Jackson Jobe is insane. Like, he has... If you develop the fastball a little bit, you can make an argument that, like, he's probably the highest upside in this class for any pitcher, definitely. But I think that he's just so solid. He's only been pitching for a year. Jackson Jobe is a really, really, really talented player. The pick itself, I'm not too exactly sure about. And then, like, from that point on, you take a Jackson Jobe, so you kind of have to build depth throughout the pitching rotation. And then you get Ty Madden, a player that I wasn't particularly fond of. I did have him in my top 21 in my mock draft. I had him going to the Cubs. But even then, I still thought there was a little bit of a reach, only because I'm trying to project that, like, the Cubs would take a kind of a back-end starter they felt like could develop quickly. They did do that, but they just took... They took Jordan Wicks instead of Ty Madden. Ty Madden doesn't really have a good fastball. He's got some decent secondary pitches, but Madden's fastball just isn't the best. And I think from then on out, the Tigers just tried to build a lot of depth. You get Isaac Pacheco, but you do get Isaac Pacheco, who is a really talented shortstop. So it kind of did help the draft out a little bit, because basically you're getting a projectable shortstop, high schooler. Then, like, in the third round, you get Dylan Smith at Alabama, projectable. You get, like, Tyler Matson, guy like Tanner Kolep in the 5th round, Austin Murr in the 6th. Just, like, building depth through college players and highly projectable high schoolers. I thought the Tigers had a good draft. And we're going to be moving on to the Cleveland Indians. And with their pick, they took one of my favorite players in this draft with their first pick, and that's going to be Gavin Williams. Just one of the best players in this draft class. I love Gavin Williams. I had him as a top 12 player in this draft class. I had him going number 7 overall at Kansas City. And I really thought that Gavin Williams could, if he went to a really good team that could develop him, he could be even better. And just Cleveland getting Gavin Williams, so good, such a steal. What a steal for the Indians in the first round. And then from then on out, I think they really wanted to build depth in their organization. Getting guys like Doug Nikhazy out of Ole Miss, guys like Tommy Mace, Jack Fox, Ryan Webb, just a lot of guys who project more as back-end starters, but solid rotation pieces. And Indians have done a really good job of developing these guys who look like more like solid to back-end rotation starters, and developing them and adding a little bit more velocity to their pitches. and developing them into more of those frontline starters. Obviously, it's not going to work out for everyone, but I think the Indians have a really good developmental system, so I'll give them the benefit of the doubt here. Really like the Indians draft, adding a lot of talent to their farm system. Now we move on to the Chicago White Sox here, and they actually had some of my favorite. They actually really had a solid draft. That you take a Colson Montgomery with their first pick. Really solid player. I love Colson Montgomery. I think he's got a really good power bat. I think he does stick at third. I think he is a third baseman, but I think that he's just so solid. And then you get Wes Kaff, really solid hitter. You get so many solid players. Yet with their first two picks with Wes Kaff and Colson Montgomery, Chicago White Sox really added a lot of high-end talent to their farm system, which is, I think, really important for them. So that's really cool. And I think that's really what the draft came down to. For the rest of their picks, it was mostly college players. So I think that with Colson Montgomery and Wes Kaff, it was get projectable players first off, then take a lot of depth later on. Really love that strategy. It's how organizations build their farm systems now. You take high impact players first in the draft, then you build depth later. It's a strategy that just simply works. Now we're moving on to the Minnesota Twins. And with their first pick, they took Chase Petty, a pitcher that I'm not exactly the highest on, but I think that they felt like that he was insanely projectable. Like, I knew Chase Petty was going in the first round. I just didn't know when he was going to go. But I think Chase Petty is really solid. I think he's got an amazing fastball, but I also think that he needs a lot of work. Like, he's a high school pitcher that needs a lot of development, and we're going to see if the Twins can develop him. But taking a high upside pick in Petty is good. Taking another shortstop in the compensation pick in Noah Miller, kind of raising them the floor of the farm system. The Twins really didn't have the most flashiest draft. The pick I really don't agree with, however, is Steven Ajar in the late second. I had Steven Ajar as a fifth round prospect. I just don't like Steven Ajar that much, honestly. So there's that. But outside of that, this is the only really pick I fully disagree with. Obviously we don't see eye to eye on Chase Petty, but I knew that a team was going to take a shot on Chase Petty in the first round, and he's not the worst player to take a shot on, honestly. So yeah, Twins had a really solid draft. Again, continuing to build up a farm system that has lost a lot of talent in these last couple years, and honestly needs to continue to move forward with building up this talent. Obviously, the Twins have really disappointed this year, but I think that they need to move forward with continuing to help this farm system out a little bit, give them a little bit of relief. And now we're going to move on to the Royals, and this is the one draft that I kept on mentioning in my last video, where I actually really disagree with what they did here. It's not a totally awful draft, a bad draft. It's just that some of these picks, we just do not see eye to eye on them. It started off with Frank Mozzicato, a clear under-slot pick. But oh my goodness. Really not truly fond of the pick. Frank Mozzicato is, honestly, he's solid, but he's clearly not a top 10 talent for me. Kind of like another pick we'll get into later in this video. But I think that they didn't really, obviously they're going with the classic, go under slot first, spread the money around. But Ben Kaderma, obviously, I honestly don't think it was the best overslot option in the second. I'm not that high on Ben Kaderma. I gave him like a third round grade. his fastball's fine, but like the other pitches just don't really scream anything that's special to me. And I think with this Royals draft, they kind of just took a lot of like solid players, but like they didn't really take a lot of upside here. Like not a lot of really players I really see with a lot of upside, and it's kind of disappointing too because you know you want upside with a top 10 selection. You need a lot of upside, but like the underslot of Frank Mozzicato, I don't really know if obviously the money's gonna get spent, but it just I don't know, dude. I don't know. The Royals really confused me with this draft. I'm not gonna say it's a bad draft because obviously we don't know yet, but like they didn't really match up with my evaluations. And now we're gonna move on to our last team of the AL Central. Oh, that's it. So with that said, we're gonna move on to the AL West. And first off, we're going to be tackling the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim. They had a very unique draft. They had a problem of pitching, and they just threw every single dart at it they could. And they took Sam Bachman as a top 10 pick. Again, another pick, I had a mid to late second round grade on Bachman, but this is clearly under slot. Bachman does sort of worry me as like a potential reliever. Like he has like a really weird windup. He doesn't really have a solid release. But what makes me a little bit feel better about this pick is that the Angels have done a really good job of developing Reed Detmers. So Bachman could definitely be in his camp. And then from then on out, take a lot of developmental pitchers. Kyle Busch is a really good developmental pitcher. Landon Marceau is a decent pitcher. Luke Murphy's a good pitcher out of a decent pitcher. Like a lot of like solid to back end starters and potential relievers here. But I think these draft picks were made to just fix the pitching. They're one of the first teams ever to go with 20 for 20, meaning that they selected pitching in every single one of their draft picks. A bit of a weird strategy, but hey, when you got a problem, I guess you're gonna have to fix it. And the Angels definitely are trying to fix their problems. Their pitching going 20 for 20 with all their draft picks on pitching. So next up, we're gonna be going with the Texas Rangers here. And with their strategy, they wanted to get the most talent possible with this number 2 overall pick. They're not sure if they're going to have this high of a pick again. Obviously, I think that they will because they're not really that good of a team and they're not playing well. But obviously, like we don't know if they're ever going to be picking top 2 again. So you kind of have to capitalize on the value. And they added as much talent as possible. And they started off their draft with Jack Leiter, a pick that I predicted. Again, I'm not the biggest fan of Jack Leiter, but I thought it was worth a top 2 pick for Jack Leiter. Really solid, really good pitcher. Potential Sonny Gray upside. Fastball changeup is very good. Needs to develop some other breaking pitches. Needs to develop some other pitches. Actually, scratch it. It's fastball. I think it's his fastball and his curveball that are really good. But he needs to develop. He needs to develop some other off-speed pitches. But I think if he does that, he'll be really well off. Next up in the second round, the Rangers took Aaron Zavala, a very athletic, fast outfielder from Oregon. Again, just raising the floor of the farm system with these college players, and that's really what really happened here with these picks. A lot of these picks were made to raise the floor, and that's what the Rangers tried to do, is just raise the floor of a farm system that really needs it. Did all of our evaluations match up? Not particularly, but I think that overall, I think the Rangers did a decent job with this draft, adding a lot of different talent in different places. And we're going to be moving on to the Houston, to unfortunately a team I don't really have much comment on. which are the Houston Astros. Obviously, with not having a first-round pick again because of the cheating scandal. Because of the cheating scandal, they didn't have a pick until the third round. And honestly, like, not really much I can say. Like, Tyler Whitaker is decent, but, like, not really much I can say. They kind of just wanted to improve the overall just ceiling. Because they wanted to improve the overall ceiling of the farm system. It's kind of hard to improve the farm when MLB takes away your first 2 picks in 2 years in a row. And pretty much limits on what you can do in the draft. I think with this pick, they just kind of had to take best player available and take as many money savers as you can. Not much I can really say on the Astros draft. Now we're moving on to the Athletics draft, and I thought the A's had a decent draft. I really liked the A's strategy here. They took Max Muncy, a developmental shortstop out of California. I was a big fan of Max Muncy. I thought he was really underrated by the media. I think Max Muncy was a little bit underscouted as well. I think that, like, he played California baseball, and that really didn't get a lot of looks this year because of COVID. I think the looks that we did get, he really impressed. Obviously, the A's had an ability to get a close look at him. Get a really good closer look at him. And Max Muncy's such a solid pick. Really nice pick there. And it just continues getting, like, some really solid players. Just taking a lot of solid players, raising the floor of this farm system. Not really much I can kind of say about the A's draft. It was solid. Get some really nice players into the farm system. Max Muncy was a really good first pick, and they kind of just continued it on. And now we're going to be coming up with the next team, and that's going to be the Seattle Mariners. And they take in the first, and they kind of didn't. They had a kind of a. They had a draft where, like, they really wanted to rate again, like, kind of just add as much projectable talent as possible. With as good as a farm system as the Mariners have right now, they just kind of needed to add as much projectable talent as possible. They get Harry Ford in the first round. Pick I'm not going to comment on. I thought it was a really fine pick. I have him going number 11 to the Nationals in my mock. He goes number 12 to the Mariners. You know, he's athletic as anything, so he can really play at any position. He's also a catcher now. I'm not sure if he sticks behind catcher. I think he can move to center field. I think he can move to an infielder spot. I think he can really move around. Kind of similar to Dalton Varsho, the Diamondbacks have right now. And this kind of continues. Edwin Arroyo, projectable shortstop. Just a lot of projectable players here. A lot of high schoolers. Michael Morales is another projectable pitcher from Pennsylvania in the third round. It's a lot of projectable high schoolers, and getting a lot of projectable high schoolers who could develop very nicely. I think that's a really good formula for having a very good draft. I thought the Mariners had a really good draft, and they wanted to really develop the farm system. And with this, we are going to be moving on to the AL East, which is the home of my favorite team. And we're going to be talking about my favorite team here, the Baltimore Orioles. A little bit of a confusing strategy, but I think I can kind of explain what the Orioles tried to do here with this draft. And what the Orioles tried to do with this draft is they try to get as much possible players to raise the ceiling of the farm system as possible, and kind of like develop develop as many players as possible. Let's see how it works out. Colton Cowser started off the draft, and it's a pick that I'm still not really exactly sure on. I've heard a lot of mixed kind of results about him. Obviously, I think people at Fangraphs who study advanced metrics love the pick. Hauser is obviously a very athletic outfielder with the discipline to just go along with it. He does not miss high. When he swings, he does not chase, which is very important for discipline. He's got a very nice bat, nice bat. The power in the fielding is really where the conflicting reports kind of come in. I think he's got good power. I think he's got a lot of decent power. And overall, I do think that the pick isn't as bad as I think I projected it to be on draft night. But then, like, we go on, they take Connor Norby in the second. I think a lot of people wanted this to be a high schooler, but, you get a really talented hitter in Connor Norby in the second. You get a Reed Tremble in the third. You get a guy like a John Rhodes at a Kentucky in the fourth. You get a Dante Williams, another very solid outfielder. So they've taken a lot of outfielders here. But I want to really comment on Reed Tremble. Kind of a pick that sort of threw off some people a little bit. But Reed Tremble was a very projectable player out of a very low conference in southern Mississippi. Didn't really play all that much. Kind of was injured on and off. Had very projectable skills though. He was an analytic darling, and I think the analytics, and I think the really analytical modern team. I think Elias is really built here for the Orioles. Kind of viewed players differently than I think a lot of other sources did, which is why it's kind of a weird. It's a little bit of a weird draft. But I think the point of this draft was to get as much kind of like talent as possible to raise the ceiling of the farm system. And overall, I thought the Orioles didn't have a terrible draft. Yeah, you want a little bit more with the top 5 pick. Yeah, we didn't exactly see eye to eye in some of the evaluations, but overall, I thought it was a good draft. The Boston Red Sox, for me, really had a fantastic draft. It started off, first of all, with just getting the best player in this draft, the Marcelo Mayer, at number 4. What an amazing pick this is. This is probably the best pick of the night, of the first round. Definitely. I just love the pick so much. I think it's so good. But then you get Marcelo Mayer, and you kind of do have to save a little bit of money. So you take Judd Fabian in the second. I wasn't that big of a fan of Judd Fabian. I think he has big-time discipline issues. I think he's a solid fielder. I think he does have a little bit of like projectable power. But I think from this point on, the Red Sox kind of just wanted to, again, stick to the board and take a lot of projectable talent here. Tyler McDowell, and a lot of other of these players. But I think the Red Sox really also had to save money down the board, because obviously Marcelo Mayer is going to take a lot of money to sign, and I think that this is really overall a really great draft class. I think that like getting Marcelo Mayer in a system that really needs it right now is fantastic. I think he's going to be a really good player for the Red Sox. I think he's going to be a really, really good player down the line. And now we're going to move on to the Toronto Blue Jays. They honestly had one of my favorite picks in the first round too. But with these picks, I think the Blue Jays really want, again, they were college heavy again. They've been college heavy these last couple of years. Obviously, they don't have a second round pick because they signed George Springer. But I thought that they added a lot of pitching that they needed. They took a lot of pitchers early on. They kind of did. But getting Gunnar Hoagland in the first round was one of my steals for me. I had Gunnar Hoagland going 14 to the San Francisco Giants, but I think Gunnar Hoagland is just such a solid, such a good pitcher. Like, Tommy John surgery doesn't really scare me with him. He had great control as well. When he was pitching at Ole Miss. Just what a great pick there. And then getting a lot of solid pitchers later on. I think they wanted to improve their pitching depth, and this is what they really did here. Gunnar Hoagland is going to be a really solid starter for them. Very nice pick and very nice draft by the Toronto Blue Jays, trying to really improve their starting pitching depth, which I feel like was the plan here for the Blue Jays. Then we move on to the New York Yankees. So the New York Yankees wanted to add as much projectable talent as possible to their farm system, and I think that they did it very well. You get one of my sleepers in this draft in Trey Sweeney at number 20. Fantastic pick. Love Trey Sweeney. Very analytical darling. I got this one right, man. I had him as a top 15 player. He goes top 20. I'm so happy I got this pick right. He's so projectable. He's so good. Trey Sweeney is a very, very fun player. Yankee fans should be very happy you get Trey Sweeney. And then, like, for the rest of the draft, you kind of just do build depth throughout. And that's really what you have to do with these picks. And I thought the Yankees did a really nice job of that. Not only getting Trey Sweeney, but also building depth. And now the Rays. I think with this draft for the Rays, I think they really wanted to, once again, kind of like raise the overall ceiling of the draft and kind of just take projectable talent, potentially develop them into something more. It's sort of Carson Williams. You know, he's projectable. He's a bit of a two-way. He's a two-way player right now. I'm not sure where he'll stick long term. Might be shortstop. It might be a third base. It might be even a corner outfield. But he's got a decent bat. He's projectable. The pick wasn't really the greatest, but the Rays probably have some analytical data on him that shows that, you know, he's better than I think he's being perceived as. Cooper Keeney in the competitive balance round is another pick that I'm a little bit that I do like. I do like Cooper Keeney. He's a really solid hitter. Again, raising the ceiling of this draft. Then you get like a Kyle Manzardo, a guy that I really came on late for me. Really good power, really good on base. First baseman, yes, but can really add some solid depth to the Rays here. And I think that's really what the Rays wanted to do. Here's just kind of get a lot of depth, kind of raise the roof of the farm system a little bit, and just kind of build more of this excellent farm system. All right, guys, so that will do it for my AL East draft reactions. Again, this is just me reacting to the team's draft. Overall, a lot of solid drafts. Really, a lot of good players got taken, and I think a lot of farm systems are going to adding a lot of different talent. Obviously, this is a lot of fun to do. I love the MLB draft. And if you enjoyed the video, please leave a like, subscribe, tell your friends about it. We're going to continue to grow the channel over here. We're going to continue to keep on pumping out videos. And I hope you guys have a wonderful night and take care.